Ragazzi e ragazze, benvenuti in Arcade Coffee. Welcome back to Arcade Coffee, or welcome if it's the first time that you are here. Today we're going to talk about Mouse PI for Air. I've been waiting for this game for ages, since the first time I saw a trailer, and I think it's the same for many people out there because it was very popular at some point. It was the style of this game was copied by anyone, and now there are multiple games that are copied the style of Mouse PI for Air, and it's a shame. But anyway, let's talk about this game. This game was developed by Fumi Games, that it is a Polish developer. Poland is doing amazing well, speaking of video games, and I played it on PC, but it's out there on PlayStation 5, Xbox, Nintendo Switch 2, and whatever. I played it, at least it took me 15 hours to beat the game, and I played the game at the maximum difficulty, but we're gonna have a discussion on that. What is Mouse PI for Hire? So basically the video game as a parody of the boomer shooter as a genre, took the boomer shooter, FPS boomer shooter as the main genre, and is a parody of many games, and mostly about hardballed kind of stories, both in movies, but mostly from Raymond Chandler kind of novel. And it takes this 1930 Walt Disney style animation to convey the story. Everything takes place in a world where everyone is a mouse, and it's a mouse word, and there are a lot of pun about cheese and it's like that. And basically this is the concept of the game, but there is a lot more to say. And I loved Mouse PI for Air, and I loved it because basically what this game does is bring back gaming to the 90s, because whoever grew up in the 90s remember games like Duke Nukem or Redneck Rampage or Carmageddon or many other video games, FPS or not, that were not taking themselves too seriously. The game were very silly because they understood. This is the thing that I love, is that they understood that you are in a medium where you can do whatever you like, and you can be as over the top and insane and crazy as much as you like, even with game made with as point and click, like the LucasArts games, Monkey Island, Maniac Mansion, and or moving on, Grim Fandango, stuff like that. You had the chance to tell any sort of story that you would have loved to tell, and that was fine, and that was it, and that was okay. But anyway, I love this concept because I believe that in the last, I think post Uncharted 4 and mostly The Last of Us, the gaming industry started to shift too much towards serious storytelling, in a way of making every game like of heavy and important. I think it was a sort of way of the whole gaming industry to, from in one way, to grow up, so to kind of to adapt to an audience that was growing up and to make them not feel silly in playing video games. I believe this is what happened, so in a way this is the thing. But on the other hand, I think that it was a sort of looking for a validation of the whole medium. And if in a way it's welcome and kind of organic, because I think that it was something that was about to happen at some point, because as the audience grown and keep sticking with gaming, they will have the feeling that they will need something more relatable to their adult life, and also a medium, I think it has chance to expand into stories that are more adult and stuff like that. So it's something that was supposed to happen, but at the same time it was a kind of an overcorrection, because games like Duke Nukem 3D, Redneck Rampage, Grim Fandango, Monkey Island, and conquers. There are so many games very over the top, started little by little to disappear, and everything became so goddamn serious, and it's so annoying. But Mouse PI for Hire is trying to bring back this, and the things that I love is that the whole concept is trying to do that, and in order to do so, they were smart enough to understand two things. I need a concept that will allow me to do that, and the idea of having a mouse in a world of a mouse detective in a world of mouse, where everything looks like a 1930 animation, will allow the developer to tell any sort of wacky and insane story and to make it work, because everything is so over the top and wacky that will make sense. And the other thing is that we need to make a wacky game, because in this way we can land in the realm of parody, and if we create a parody, we can even work with the medium itself. We can make jokes with the user, and we can kind of steal here and there in order to make our concept more broader and interesting and fun, and have a good read in the developing of the video game. And in fact, the video game make fun of like Steamboat Willie, Popeye, the Goodfellas. There are references to the Goodfellas. There is a reference to an accident that happened in Italy. I think since they are Polish, they know a lot about stuff that happened in Europe and in Italy as well. And they make a reference to something that happened in Italy with the Costa Concordia. There was an accident and the boat sinking. It was a whole deal. And then there is a reference, and when I found out, I couldn't stop laughing. So if anyone from the team is hearing this review, I really appreciate it, and a lot of people had a lot of fun with it. But anyway, there are reference to, speaking even on an aesthetic level, to Edward Hopper, Salvador Dali, Maurizio Cattelan, Creature from the Black Lagoon, Indiana Jones, Phantom of the Opera, The Wizard of Oz, Metropolis, Bioshock, Duck Hunt, Resident Evil, Doom. There's a whole level that is basically Doom. And even the enemies change. You have a whole level that is basically unawake, because you have a torch, and in order to defeat those ghostly enemy, you have to enlight them with the torch. You consume their shield, and then you can shoot at them. It's unawake, basically. That's what it is. And even moving from that, I love the thing that this game has so many references to different game and pop culture and art and stuff like that, and it's very well made, because that is what a parody is supposed to do. It comes at the cost, and moving to the end of the review, I'm going to tell you what I don't like about this game and what I hope they will fix in moving forward, if they are going to do a sequel or whatever. But I love dearly those aspects. I love the fact that in some instances they break the fourth wall and they make joke directly to the user, or in some cases they make joke, the main character make joke about game mechanics. I love that. It's fun, because they are not abusing those elements. They are here and there. They are well balanced, and so I love them. But on an artistic level, as I said, as I was hinting before, it's amazing. I love the aesthetic. It's very cartoonish. I love the fact that they have, for example, the weapon, the main characters, the NPC, the enemy. They're all hand draw and animating in 2D kind of Doom kind of style, but with a modern spin and with this specific mood of the 1930 animation. But at the same time, the music, the way they use the music, remember me of Grim Fandango. I don't know if you ever played. If not, you should. But Grim Fandango was heavily inspired by noir tales, but also, for example, Casablanca was one of the main inspiration, kind of detective story. But at the same time, it was heavily inspired by the Dia de los Muertos, so the kind of folklore of the the idea of the death, the Day of the Dead by uh, celebrating in Mexico. What am I talking about? Sorry, guys. In Mexico. And so the kind of music they use for the game, it was a music that was inspired by that cultural heritage. And in this case, you have a lot of music that is jazz, and it works with the noir kind of setup, and even visually speaking, animation, enemy deaths, and stuff like that. They are very heavily inspired by the 1930s kind of animation, cartoonish, and they're fun and they're wacky, and they are rewarding sometimes, because the how enemy dies, it's so funny that sometimes you look for a spectacular death just for the sake of having those animation, and they put a lot of attention in the animation. So you have a Tommy gun that in the game is called a James gun, if I remember correctly, and so you have the parts of the gun going on, and it's bouncy, and then when you upgrade the guns, there are new parts, and it's so well done. There is a lot of attention to detail, even with the enemy. When the enemy dies, if they blow your head, you can hear them basically kind of drowning in their own blood. They go like it's like, it's very adult, and I like this dissonance between 1930 cartoon, but at the same time it's very violent. Or if you make them explode, they get incinerated, and then you have this pile of ashes with the two little eyes staring at you. If you shoot them with, I don't know, a gun that is working with acid, they melt, and you see the melting animation. Then you have just the bones, and then they go down, and you have the sound of the bones kind of making music, and I like in the old cartoons. They have an attention on artistic level that is very high, and even on developing the various level, you can understand, even if the rest of the game is made in 3D, you can understand the very huge attention to detail, because you are in a location and you go like, okay, this is Resident Evil. This mansion is very kind of Resident Evil-y, kind of, but at the same time they have put enough attention to make that map playable in a way that it works for a FPS boomer shooter. So well done. And at the same time, you have in location you go like, okay, this is Doom, this is Alan Wake, this is something else. It makes sense. Everything always makes sense. Okay. And since they took the way of developing a game that is a boomer shooter, first things first, they provided a gameplay that it's very dynamic, like a Doom-like. So it's very fast, and it's very responsive. And the levels, like in a good Doom levels, you can explore them. You can find secret area, and it's rewarding find the secret area, because you find maybe cash. You find cash, and cash you need them to buy bullets before you go on a mission, or to buy secondary element that I'm going to explain later on, collectible, but also cards that you can use in a game, because there is a game of cards inside Mouse PI for Hire. You can buy collectible that give you extra things on the lore of Mouse PI for Hire, and it's very rewarding. Or you can find blueprint, and the blueprint are your currency to basically upgrade the weapons, and that's very good. You are rewarded by the exploration. Or example, you find those sort of Funko Pop of the main character that when you found them, they have a specific animation, and it's something nice. It's a reward. It's actually very rewarding to find those little secrets. And the boss fights, they are very creative. Sometimes they have boss fights that there is one that is even in the trailer. It's even in the trailer, and when I saw the trailer I didn't realize, but then when I played the video game, I was like, this boss fight, it's from Metal Gear Solid. This is the boss fight with Vulcan Raven. They change a little bit the concept, but it's the same thing. It's a big guy with a Vulcan. In this case, it's a big mouse with a Vulcan. It's surrounded by container, and what you do is basically you gotta shoot at him with those. There are those exploding barrel, and that's how you're gonna damage him. In Metal Gear Solid, you need to launch grenade, or you can hit it with an RPG, if I remember correctly. But the concept of the boss fight is exactly the same, and I think it's on purpose. But anyway, it's out there, and I loved it. I honestly loved the reference, like the Alan Wake reference, the mechanic and stuff like that. I love it. I absolutely dig it. And I like the fact that the levels are always different in concept and in feeling, and that moving forward you have different ability, that you can unlock a double jump, you can unlock the way to spin with the tail, and so you can kind of calm down, stay up in the air and calm down a little by little, and you can dive down a little bit, and then you have you can run, you can do a wall run, and then you can jump on stuff that are up high and just grab them and go up. You can use your tail as a whip to jump on hooks and stuff like that, and use them to have momentum and do a big jumps. You have different weapons that are very interesting and wacky. You have a shotgun, you have a Tommy gun, you have a ice gun like Mr. Freeze. You can freeze people and go around like that. You have basically a cannon. What is supposed to be a rocket launcher is basically a cannon. You have another, it's not a shotgun, it's a double barrel, and it has explosive kind of bullets that set on fire your opponents. You have a gun that basically shoots acid. You have a gun that makes people's head explode. You have a chainsaw, and you have all those kind of guns that you can upgrade. You can choose which one you like the most. It has a good depth, the game, the video game, the concept. It has a very good depth, and I loved it. And I love the fact also that here and there you have some boost. For example, here and there you find one of those old style kind of candy. There are those things, you put the coin, you turn it around, and the candy comes down. If you eat the candy, if you use one of those, your bullets, whatever is your weapon, they're gonna set on fire the enemies. And when you have loads of enemies coming at you, it's a good boost to have. Or in some case there are scripted boosts, like there is this thing where you eat spinach and you became like Popeye, your arm became giant and you can punch in the face everyone and smash their face. Or there is another boost that basically turn your hand into a pistol, and so you just shoot with your hand. It's very funny, it's over the top, it's wacky, and I love it. But at the same time, I love how they managed this thing about the progression of the game. So if you play the old Doom kind of games, you have chapter, and every chapter is a different base on Mars or whatever, where you're going to kill everyone basically. But it's not like you can choose which base, it's just a standard progression. Here in Mouse PI for Hire, you have the main hub, that is basically this location where you have your office, and inside your office you have typewriter. Around the world you have typewriter that you can use as saving point, even if there are automatic checkpoint, but you have the typewriter to save. You have your investigation board where you put the clues and you can close leads and side investigation inside the world of Mouse PI for Hire. You have the shelf for the collectible where you put those Funko Pop. But then if you leave the building, there is a bar where you go to drink, but where the bartender is your friend and is your kind of buddy. And then there is a woman that she plays this card game, and it's a baseball card game, and those cards are collectible. You can buy them some, or you can find those cards around in secret location. And basically it's very simple. You have around when you are on the pitch to receive the ball or to work with the bat. I don't know how it's called. I don't follow baseball, but anyway, it's very simple. The player have a specific value. If your receiver has a value that is lower or higher than the one on the with the baseball bat, is going to lose or win according to the value. If the value is lower, you're going to hit the ball and you're going to do a home run. If it's insane higher, or you're going to lose or whatever. It's a very simple game, but it works and it's funny to play. And of course, even in that case, every time you win a game, you receive a special coin, and there is a machine. If you put the coin into the special machine, you're gonna receive a perk, you're gonna unlock something, and it's funny. It's something that it's very fun. It's secondary, you don't have to do it, but if you do, it's funny. And then you have this friend of yours, it's another NPC that is a journalist. You talk to her and she gives you secondary mission. And there are other characters that gives you secondary mission here and there in the main hub. But as well, you have a character that she's gonna be the one upgrading your weapons. And so this is the main hub, but as soon as you leave, you can unlock one or multiple locations where there are cases and where are basically the level that you have to play, and you can move there with your little car on the map. You move there, you go there, you start to play the section of the game, and then if you want, you can go somewhere else. And it's fun because they thought this through, and on the map there are multiple shop locations. So if you wanna spend money and buy more ammo, you don't need to go back to the hub. There are just those small shop around the town, around the map, and so you can step there, buy ammo, and then go to make the mission instead of go back to the hub, buy stuff there, and then go again, and blah 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 blah. It's more. They thought this through, and it works very well. And the game is full of, as I said, secret. There are newspaper with the lore of the world of Mouse PI for Hire. There are even a comic book strip that tells basically a parallel story, another story of your detective or your mouse detective, and you can find them around. You can buy some. It's funny. It's very funny. It's a game that has a lot of depth and it's so fun. And as I said, it's a Doom-like. So basically, you shoot, you run around, you shoot a bunch of enemies. It's very violent, it's very funny, it's very responsive, it's over the top, and there are many different levels. There are so many different levels with different vibes and different kind of outcome, speaking of enemies and ability that we will need to use to jump around, move around, stuff like that. Different boss fight, different vibes. Some are more inspired to action, some are more inspired to horrors, Resident Evil. You have very, very different vibe, and you have this system with the lock picking, where you basically use your tail inside this maze where you need to unlock you have to pick the lock, and there are more than a little bit challenging because you have maybe a specific number of moves that you can do in a specific amount of time. It's fun. The game is a great deal of fun. I have a lot of fun, and I think that Mouse PI for Hire is a cult classic already, and I think as well that it has potential to generate a whole bunch of sequels now that they finished this one, and I think they can learn from everything that they have done developing this and make way more other Mouse PI for Hire, because this is the thing. You can think about this game and say, okay, there are a bunch of ideas, this game is making fun of a bunch of games, but are they just a bunch of stuff, put them in the mix and they don't make any sense? No, actually no. I think that they were very clever, because the second you use a concept like a cartoonish concept like they did with this game, and in the moment you use comedy and you create a system like a private detective investigating, but as well you create a system where the game is an FPS, so it's very action driven. It's very open to many interpretation. You can kind of make a fun of whatever you like. You can make a fun of horror games, you can make a fun of classic action shooter, you can make fun of detective games, more detective story, but keeping the FPS element in the middle, in the center of the adventure. Or if they want, they can even shift completely. Nobody is telling them that they can't make a mouse PI for hire that maybe take place in a Bioshock kind of setup, and maybe you have a secondary element with ability and at the same time the gun. Nobody's telling them that they can't make a full horror kind of Alan Wake but in first person, or like more story driven kind of adventure where, like Resident Evil, even something like very Resident Evil with a gameplay loop that it's more Capcom like. They can even do that. As far as in first person, like the Resident Evil, and they keep those elements of comedy, it's fine. Because even some stuff, like at some point, I know Alan Wake was released in 2023, but I think that a couple of character were designed after the release of Alan Wake, because there are those enemies that they are like part of a cult, and the stuff that they have in the cult, they are very similar to the same stuff that I saw in Alan Wake, but even the design, they have those horn like deer horn, and I was like, that's very similar. And I think they took inspiration from many other games, but I think they can use mouse PI for hire to make sort of parody of many other genres, starting from the first person perspective, and I think it can work. But at the same time, I think there are so many things that they are supposed to review and take in consideration to revisit and fix them in the next release of the game, so in a follow-up or whatever they're going to do. So let's start from this. The difficulty of the game is very rough. So what I mean is that there is the normal difficulty and it's very easy. I think they made this normal difficult as so easy because the game it has a broad kind of audience, so it's not just on PC where FPS usually thrive and where usually FPS they have a bigger audience, but it's also for console gamer, but not for console gamer that go into competitive. It's a story driven kind of game, so it's for everyone. So I believe they make a normal difficulty that could be approached by even a gamer that play FPS here and there, not very often, but it's attracted by the style of mouse PI for hire, and so he has the chance to have an easy access to the game without feeling frustration. And the normal difficulty, I think it was designed for that, having this idea in mind. And it's okay. It's okay because they put the higher level of difficulty, the hard setup, and the hard setup, it's more of a challenge. If you use to play FPS like I do, it's one of my favorite genre. I've played FPS since I was a kid. That's where I start from. Doom, Duke Nukem, Quake, stuff like that. And if you are that kind of player, play it hard because it's gonna be more interesting to play. But the thing is that at hard, it's not like you have, more enemies, or the enemies are, there are more a spectrum of enemies that is higher. No, basically the hard difficulty, just that they have an insane kind aim. 90% of time they're gonna hit you. And in fact, on the map, you have an insane amount of time an insane amount of cure, cure. This booze that you drink to cure yourself, and sometimes they respawn. They have those cabinet where you can take the cure, and they respawn after a while, because I think they know they needed this to balance the fact that they are difficult. It's basically enemy with a name that is impossible to, it's they are like laser precise when they shoot, and this is very has to be balanced somehow, somewhat. But I think also this amount of cure and healing object that they have on the map, it's also by design for the normal difficulties. I think this probably the same. It's for because they want an audience that they won't get frustrated playing this game on PlayStation, Xbox, or Switch 2. So I think this is it. But I know that for a gamer that is used to FPS, it can be kind of annoying, because it's not that the game it's more challenging. It's just that the game it's more it's gonna punish harder the player, and it's not how you balance difficulties, you know. So, but anyway, it's not the end of the world in a way. It has a couple of bugs here and there. It happened to me that I was shooting to an enemy, and that enemy, instead of having the animation and die, was just staying still and watching me for afar. And it was like this is, he's watching me, he's following me with his eyes. I'm afraid, go away, monster. And it's like that. It get bugged and stuff like that. Some stuff get glitchy at the end of the game, the last part of the game, where you have those wall run and you have those rug that tells you that you can climb. They are kind of glitch, and you can see the texture coming off from the object where those rug are basically the piece of how can I call them, those rug and stuff like that, they have the indication where you can climb and stuff like that. You can see the object on where they are basically positioned, that it's coming through sometimes, because they are glitch. And I think that in order to ship the game, a couple of things they basically skip the quality, the QA part, they basically didn't went through. Maybe they are still fixing them, I don't know, but I can see that a couple of glitch here and there. Weapons, there's a huge variety of weapons, but at the end of the day, the feedback of the weapons is not always the best. The James gun, so the Tommy gun, is the gun that you're gonna use most of the time, because it's the one that is more effective from afar. It's the one that is more precise, and it's the one that is blasting enemy more effective. In fact, you have bullets everywhere for that gun. The shotgun, it's sometimes a bummer, because the beauty of the shotgun is that when you get close to an enemy, shot them in the face, their face explode, or their chest explode, or whatever. It's the beauty of the shotgun in any FPS. In this game, sometimes you shoot very close to the enemy face. What happens is they get stunned, and then you gotta shoot them again, and it's not what you're looking for this kind of weapon. Sometimes it's very annoying that is the effect. The double barrel kind of gun, here again, should have a devastating effect. It doesn't, and it set people on fire, okay, but the bullet itself, they're not that devastating. And the other guns, even if I almost maxed out all the guns, they were all at the maximum level of improvement. Almost all of them, almost. They were not so rewarding as a feedback. So I think that even if the animation was super cool and I love them, and I love when you have wacky guns, I'm also the kind of guy that say make less gun, but give them a better balance, and mostly study the response that those guns have. I need to have fun when I shoot with those guns. If they are not that funny, we have a problem. And if I'm gonna end up playing the game with 90% of the time the same gun, we have a huge problem. I think it's not the end of the world. Even here, it's not like the game is insanely affected by this, but it's still a problem, and I think that should be fixed, because otherwise you just put a gun in the game and that's it. But this is not the case. Anyway, I think as well that some ability in the game, they should have come way first. For example, the wall run comes at a fair good point of the game, but the ability to climb, so I do a double jump, I go very up, I can climb, it comes basically at the end of the game. And I think that in this way, they took away the chance for themselves to design some level with some verticality, so chance to have more complex part of the game that can be developed in verticality. And I think that that's a shame. I think they should have given to the players all the ability, double jump, the possibility to glide with the tail, the chance to use the tail as a whip, and the wall run, and the climbing from the very, I don't know, 5 to 6 level, or even before, and then have fun with the level design moving forward, because you have all those abilities. I think that would be much appreciated. The other problem is that boss fight. Some boss fights are very funny, are very kind of old school, like Ray trying to hit you and you gotta use a kind of a little bit of platforming, old school FPS kind of skills to prevail. Some boss fights are very inventive, like, as I said, they copy a boss fight from Metal Gear Solid, that's Vulcan Raven boss fight, and that's it. It's fun, I like it, but at this point they could have steal some other boss fight from some other games, because there are boss fights that are so lazy and boring that it was kind of a disappointment. There is a whole level that takes place in a kind of a magical realm, and it's amazing, it's very fun to play, I had a lot of fun. I think they could have used more inventive idea in this level, but anyway, it was a great deal of fun, I loved it. But the boss fight was super disappointing. I mean, it was just this magician showing you a card, like I don't know, hearts, and so you are floating on those gigantic cards, and you gotta jump on the cards with the hearts so you don't fall down, because all the cards fall down. And then it's not like you have a chance to shoot at the character or you need to do some action. No, you're just jumping on those cards and trying to survive till the boss fights end, and that's it. And some boss fights are very lazy. I think that they should have used more inventive. They should have come up with something more interesting for some boss fight. Some are not that. And for example, there is a level with the Wizard of Oz. There's a part inspired by the Wizard of Oz, and it's amazing. But the boss fight is kind of obnoxious. Mostly the end part, where you basically it ends up in a very silly and funny way. I had a lot of fun on the concept of narrative concept and on the comedy concept itself, making fun of some cliche of the movie. So they end up the boss fight with a fist fight, but it's annoying, the fist fight. The first time I lost because everything is burning around me, and the fist fight I was like trying to avoid to get hit and just go there and then hit the enemy, and I was trying to use some basic, very arcade tactic, not getting punched and then punching my opponent, my boss, when he had this guard down, and then I died because the fire reached us and we all died in the fire, and I had to start over. Instead, you have to go there close to your boss and just spam the punching, and that's it, and then you finish the fight. That's it. And it's very disappointing. And the last thing that I didn't like, and I think that was a huge misunderstanding in the way they designed the narrative of the game, it's the writing. I'm sorry. I love the comedy and everything else, but the narrative of Mouse PI for Hire, they lost me multiple times. I like movies. I love movies. I study cinema. I made short film. I went to Cannes Film Festival multiple times. I know what narrative it is. What it is. I know how to write. And in Mouse PI for Hire, it's so, the dialogue sometimes is so long and tedious and not that charming that, to be honest, I finished the game on Saturday night. I don't know when I'm releasing this, but I think so last week. I'm recording that it's Monday morning because during the weekend I am my parents over to meet my son. But anyway, so 2 days ago I finished the game and I don't remember anything about the narrative of Mouse PI for Hire. Nothing. Because sometimes the dialogue is so uninteresting that you just space out. That's it. Because when you write for an hard-boiled kind of setup, you gotta keep it very dry. If you even read Raymond Chandler, what is charming about the writing is the description. It's how the poetic and the charming of the way it's describing the world. For example, if you take Max Payne, Sam Lake can write hard-boiled. Even if you take, for example, Alan Wake 2 when he writes for Alex Casey, that is the writing that an hard-boiled should have. And character like the main character of this game, he should have just one liner, but sometimes he talk too much, and the NPC, they talk a lot, but everything should be more dry. They were supposed to have more one liner, or if they were talking, not that much, because the problem is also that the game, when you talk to the NPC, you just face the NPC that they have a basic animation and they keep talking and talking and talking and you space out. And what they're saying is not that interesting. And it's a problem. Because if we talk about narrative in FPS, I think one of the most amazing masterclass was made by Half-Life 2. Half-Life 2 has a character that it's not a one-liner. Gordon Freeman never talks. But anyway, the lore of the world, the world building, what's happening, the character, the other characters, they have few line of dialogues, you have few action, but everything is so iconic and interesting and fun to experience, and the narrative gets very grippy and interesting and fascinating, and they don't have that much of talking involved in the game. And that's a masterclass in how you tell a story in an FPS. Here, the mistake is that whoever wrote the narrative and the dialogue made a kind of a rookie mistake. When you are a rookie writer, even in cinema, you start to write a shitload of dialogues, pages, entire pages of script with dialogues. And in an hard-boiled kind of setup that is a comedy, and it's so annoying. It's not like that. There should be more one-liner and quick and snappy. In this case, I think the will of the narrative team or whoever wrote the game to make the game smarter and charming through a lot of dialogues was so powerful. Then I think they didn't review the script. I mean, they didn't decide, okay, let's look at this and see what we can cut because it's too much. And I think they should have been more focused on what they wanted to tell and who their character were, and write very, very dry dialogue and a story that was more focused. Because I think that even if I enjoyed the game so much, I think they put in Mouse PI for Hire too many narratives, and at some point you lose track of the main narrative. to be honest. At some point, I started to lose track on who is the bad guy, who am I chasing? Because when you go into noir, it's common to fall in a rabbit hole where you start to kind of lose track of where you're going. But in this case, it's not that case. It's not that the narrative is getting wacky and you're falling in a rabbit hole. It's like that you're going left and right with different setup and you're actually confused and lost and uninterested in what the story is trying to convey and tell. Even if it's a comedy, it doesn't mean that it has to be uninspired, speaking of plot. And I think that this game makes those mistakes. And I think that the game should have been at least a couple of hours at least shorter. Or if you want to have a 15 hours kind of experience or 10 hours kind of experience, whatever, to be more focused on what you want to tell, who are your bad guys and everything else. And you have to be more focused in telling your story and a little bit brief in the dialogue and more and be able to kill and cut dialogue that are too long and not that interesting. I think they need to change this. If they want to make this a sequel, they need to cut a lot of this because it's too much. And I think the other kind of mistake, but I think the game had a lot of attention and it wasn't necessary to have Troy Baker involved. I think Troy Baker is a great voice actor. I loved him as Higgs. I loved him as Indiana Jones, even if the game is not that brilliant, but I think he was a very good Indiana Jones. I loved him as Joel. He's fantastic, but he doesn't work as the main character of this Jack Pepper. He doesn't work as Jack Pepper because I think what Troy Baker is missing is the element of comedy. He doesn't get, I mean, from one hand, he has a script that is not that brilliant, but from the other hand, there is a lot of comedy in this game, and I think he's not getting the comedy. Not because he doesn't understand the jokes, but because he is not that kind of actor that has a good level of comedy timing and irony to make it work. I think someone in the line of, I'm not saying they should have cast him, they could have tried, but someone in the line of Will Arnett. Somebody that has that kind of level of deep voice that can work with noir, but that at the same time is a comedian and he gets comedy and he has the timing of comedy. Yes, because that's very important. Even if you're reading a joke, if you don't have the right timing, the delivery is going to feel insincere. And even if Troy Baker is very good, sometimes his delivery is very dry and not that sincere. It feels like he's not getting the joke, but I know it's not that. It's just that it's not good in doing playing a light and wacky character. I think this was a mistake. I think a guy like Will Arnett or Will Arnett itself with the same screenplay, even if it wasn't that charming, it would have worked way better. And I think it could have helped to fix a couple of lines here and there and maybe achieve a better result. And so those are the things that I didn't like about Mouse BI for Hire. And I think there are not insane things. It's not like those, what I think are problems compromise the whole experience, because even if I don't care about the narrative, the game is still fun to play. Even if the difficulties is not well balanced, it's still kind of fun to play. Even if not all the weapons are very fun to use, it's still a game fun to play. So I have a good time with it. And it's one of the games that I like the most so far this year. And I'm very happy that I bought the game, and I will think about buying the physical copy for PlayStation 4 because they've done something very great with the physical copy, and I think I'm probably gonna buy it because I want this team to be rewarded for the job that they've done, because I see that they put a lot of effort and care in developing this game, and you can tell. But I think they need to fix some stuff, and if they want to make a sequel that is gonna make fun or other vibes and other game, I think they have to be more laser focused on those aspects: narrative, writing, the concept of the kind of stuff that they want to make fun of, and they have to fix a little bit the difficulties to balance a little bit more when we move into hard. They have to add, I think, a couple of more enemies, and maybe have a shorter game. I would be happy to play a 8 to 10 hours mouse PI4I maximum, with a more focused narrative, shorter, and with a better writing, and with a concept that is more laser focused on what they want to make fun of and turn into a parody. I think that would be very beneficial for a mouse PI4R game. Also, if they give element of replayability, because I remember I finished the game and there is no sort of new game plus. I know it's an FPS, but it's kind of annoying to start the game over and you don't have all the weapons and stuff like that. I think it will be, I know it's an FPS. It's not by design something that it's required. This is a completely personal taste. But I think that since you took down the difficulty so much for the general user, the general audience, as we can say, the broader user audience, you could have insert a new game plus kind of experience. You know what I mean? Is it clear? It would make sense. But anyway, those are my thoughts. I think that at the end of the day, it's a cult game. I loved it. I love the artistic endeavor they put into it. I think that the spirit of the game is amazing. I love the irony. I love the gameplay. I think it can be better. And I think that if they make a sequel, to be laser focused on those aspects as that we discussed, and I think they can make a great second game and even a masterpiece. But anyway, ragazze, let me know your thoughts. Have you played Mouse PI4I? You enjoy it? You love it? You hate it? Whatever, let me know. Follow the podcast, share the podcast, let me know your thoughts, and see you next time. Ciao ciao!